when you didn't push back on his response to the Urban Dictionary and then brought it up and showed the second definition. You didn't push hard enough for the audience to see that he fit the first one. That's what I'm saying.
Hello, Vibe. Good to see you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just saying, because I this is what I do.
Okay.
Here we go.
Fair enough.
So, Bob, this is Vibe. Vibe is big into theology. I'm not sure how much you've heard Vibe. He's kind of looking for some good pushback, and he is an atheist.
Yeah, I mean, I'm Christian. My theology lacks tremendously, so I'm not going to be. I'm always searching, like Bob probably searches to destroy Christianity. I also search to understand my own faith better, right? But I'm definitely not the theology expert on here. I did check out your channel, Bob, and I did see that you explained why God doesn't exist in 3 minutes. I don't know if you guys actually already addressed the aesthetic theism debate, where you can just disprove God in 3 minutes or not.
No,
no,
we have not.
So just a little curiosity in there. In your mind, what is aesthetic theism, and where did it come from? Did it come from the Christian Bible?
So aesthetic deism is exactly what theism is, but instead of God being omnibenevolent or concerned with the good, he has aesthetic considerations as his top priority. And no, it doesn't come from the Bible.
No, so it comes from the philosophy circles, right? Basically saying that, hey, if we were to construct a God, we would think this God would be all about aesthetics, not goodness, correct?
Not exactly.
Okay.
What the argument aims to show is that all the evidence offered up in favor of God applies even better to a God that's concerned with the aesthetics rather than the good. So given that they have equal prior prob, and given that the data favors the latter hypothesis, well, it's just going to follow the latter hypothesis is more likely true.
So, I mean, what you're saying, though, is I'm going to throw the Christian God of love out the door. And as a atheist, I'm going to say, if I were to make up a God, the God of aesthetics would be more favorable in my world of making up my own God, correct?
No, not at all.
Because the aesthetic God does not come from Christianity whatsoever. You already admitted that. You said, no, we did not get that from the Christian Bible. We said, if there's a God, that God would be more favorable in our view of us making up a God, that it would be based on aesthetics.
So the two corrections that I'm going to have of your characterization of the argument is, one, it has nothing to do with the Christian God. It's just an omni-God. Christianity has no relevance in the argument. The second,
so you're making up a God.
That's the first criticism. The second is that it's not like I don't know what you mean by like making up. It sounds like you're like intuition pumping in favor of us doing some like ad hoc maneuver. All we're saying is that if you look at the data and then follow the data where it implies, with respect to what it implies, then you get to aesthetic deism. It's not like we're like inventing some God to like fit our worldview. We're just following the data. There's a big difference.
Well, no, there isn't, right? Because you're not actually, in that particular video, you're not debating against the Christian God. You're debating a God that you said, using my data, this is the type of God I think it would exist, not the God that the Christians say exists. You're not actually going on a loving God. You're going, based on my data, I'm going to ignore the Christians, but I'm going to say there is a God. And I would think that this God is more likely than the Christian God, right? You're saying there's a Christian God. Well, you're not saying there's a Christian God. You don't believe in God. But you're saying if there's a God, the Christian God's out the door because it doesn't fit my data analysis of if there were a God, it would have to be aesthetic. That's what you're saying. You can't disargue that, right?
So just
you're
because
saying my God based on my data, if there is a God, would be this.
Okay. So there's the way like philosophers talk about these things. Now, in the way philosophers talk about these things, every word you say has drastic implications further down the line. So that's why I'm very reluctant to agree with your characterization of my argument. But if we're talking like everyday sense of what my argument is, yeah, I'll agree to that. However, if you're going to turn around and then go, oh, given my precise wording, I actually got you in this trap that you agreed to, I'll go, no, I only granted your loose wording because I didn't think you were speaking in like a precise philosophical sense. But yeah, if we're being philosophically precise, no, that's not my argument.
It's yeah. I mean, because you're not actually arguing in that 3-minute debate, or not even debate, 3-minute video that the Christian God doesn't exist. You're debating that this God based on my data that I came up with in the philosophical circle, which I am actually very familiar with the that premise that you're saying. It's not the Christian God. And that's kind of my point. So when you're disproving God, you're disproving a God that you built on data. That's fine. I'll concede. Hey, you built it on that data. Cool. But you're not disproving the Christian God. You're disproving a God that you made up based on the data that might be probable. And even that still fails because you even say this one is more likely, but not impossible. And then you just move to P2, which you can't do if there is actually even a possibility, even if it's less. So your debate destroying God is destroying a God that was made up in a philosophical circle, but you're not destroying the Christian God. And your P2 and your P3 all fall apart after that.
Okay, so let's be very clear. What were the premises of the argument?
All right, so let's see. Because I watched it, I took some small notes here on bias and argument here on your premise one. Premise one, aesthetic deism is at least as intrinsically possible as omnitheism. One difference, doesn't discriminate.
Right. If you know, the first premise was, I think, aesthetic deism is as intrinsically probable as theism, not considering considering all the data other than good and evil. I think that was the first premise.
Yeah, so I mean, it was yours, right? And so I mean,
but I made this how long ago?
Better than I do. I watched it once.
But that was today, presumably, and I made it how long ago?
I don't know. I didn't look, but still,
at least
to the point being, you are basing a God that has, and you even already admitted, no, the God that I am disproving is not the Christian God. That was your opening statement on that when I actually said there's an aesthetic God and there's the Christian God. And because I asked, where did you get our Christian God being aesthetic God from our text? And you said, I didn't get it from the Christian text. I gave it from what's more probable.
Okay. Which premise are you disagreeing with?
Well, I'll start with one, and that's basically because 2 and 3 fall apart if you can't prove that the Christian God is an aesthetic God.
Okay. If you're checking
2 and 3 can come together if we actually disprove that the Christian God is real. And you're saying, well, one's less likely, but as we know from data, less likely doesn't mean not. And I can actually even argue before God, before you go to God.
I want to do this more rigorously. If you're objecting to my argument, tell me which premise you disagree with, and then
premise
why.
One.
Okay, what's premise one?
The aesthetic God, right? Because you're saying
what's premise one? You're disagreeing with it. What is it?
That is more likely that it's an aesthetic God than. I don't know what God. Like
you don't even know what premise you're disagreeing with.
Right off the bat,
you have no idea what you're saying.
I don't want to talk about this Christian God, this Christian loving God.
What's the first premise?
Therefore, I'm going to talk about an aesthetic God.
This is embarrassing. What you're saying, you disagree with the first premise. You don't know what it is.
Now okay, but you tell me what it is. What is your first verse?
You're disagreeing with it.
You're the one that made it.
You can't make an active claim, and then when I ask for you to clarify that active claim, you go, "What? You also made an active claim once."
I am okay. You tell me what your active claim is.
Oh my goodness!
If I got it wrong,
the argument.
If I got it wrong, if I'm okay, so I am arguing that you're arguing a made-up God that you made up, not my Christian God.
I don't care. I want look, if I give a formal
You are
argument,
totally deflecting right now.
if I make a formal argument and you're going to come and bring up that argument and make objections to it, I want to know which premise you disagree with.
Yeah, I'm starting with the very first one. I'm not going to start on 3 because if
Good.
I
So what's
start
the
on
first
1,
premise?
then everything else falls apart.
What's the first premise?
Your first premise is that it's an aesthetic god, not a god, or it's omnitheism versus
You're
aesthetic
embarrassing. Dude.
deism.
I feel bad even pushing back. This is embarrassing. You don't even know what the
You
hell the
won't even
premise
give your. You know what's embarrassing is that you won't even actually recite your first claim to me because you're losing.
Dude,
now you're just twisting words because you're losing.
You just
You
agree
don't even
with
Pull
recite
it up,
I'm
Beth.
telling you that you're
Pull up,
embarrassed.
roll it back.
Hold up. I thought I had muted. I apologize. Roll back what here? I think that maybe you guys are talking past each other at this point, and like, Vibe is maybe thinking of it one way, is communicating it differently than you put it. So that's why he's asking for clarification. He's saying it the easiest way that he knows how, rather than using your words. And I apologize for the sanding. I thought I muted. My bad. So yeah, you two figure it out. I mean, I would, if I were you, Bob, I would just restate what your premises are.
Yeah,
That's
and
my-
Bob,
if
Bob,
in any
let's
in
keep it
any
civil.
philosophy debate sphere, all philosophers would agree that if some nitwit is going to come and disagree with my argument, he's going to have to say which premise he disagrees with. Any philosopher
just
could
said
immediately see
number
that this guy's
one.
clowning around. Oh, I disagree with the argument. I think the first premise is like omnitheism or something. This guy has no idea what he's objecting to. And then he wants me to start reiterating my argument. Dude, the claim wasn't that you want clarification about my argument. It was that you disagree with it. So which premise and why? Go.
Okay, so I started off at the very beginning and you were stumbling, but now you're getting an attitude.
Which
I'm not gonna
premise?
I'm going to give you an attitude back, okay?
Which
Okay.
premise?
I'm good faith here. So
Give it right back, Vibe.
I what I said very easily at the very beginning was that I believe that your disproof in that particular video is you switching from the Christian God to the aesthetic God. And I disagree with that. Does that make sense?
Which premise?
You're getting a deer in the headlight look there, Vibe.
I'm just,
I understand what Vibe's saying. I think I understand what Vibe's saying.
I understand how if you're not familiar with the philosophy debate sphere, it's going to look like I'm just not engaging. But any person familiar with the philosophy debate sphere knows that if someone's rambling at you with respect to an argument, you do not engage in the ramblings and just sit back and say, you need to formulate a precise criticism. I gave you a precise argument. You're criticizing it. Which premise? And this guy's waffled all around. First, he's tried to formulate the first premise. He completely failed to do so. Then he switched his criticism to something about the Christian God. Dude, do you disagree with my argument or not? If no, then why bring it up? And I don't care what your criticism is if you're not disagreeing with the argument. If yes, what's the premise and why you disagree with it?
Wow. Okay. So what I disagree with is that you instantly you make a claim for God. I'm going to disprove God in 3 minutes. My first point was, are you just disproving your philosophical God that you are using your data to disprove, or are you using the Christian God? Are you disproving the Christian? Let me ask you a question. In that 3-minute video, are you trying to disprove the Christian God?
No.
Okay. That was my argument, because I basically felt like in that video, you're like, I'm disproving God. Everybody's going to assume you're trying to disprove a Christian God. I already granted that in your made up God, based on your data, that I can follow premise 1, 2, and 3 all the way through. But that God that you're disproving is not the Christian God, because the Christian God does not actually fit premise 1.
Okay.
And am I waffling or are you waffling? That is my big question here.
Brilliant. What are the premises?
Oh my God. Just answer my question.
Okay, you know what? At this point, anyone who's familiar with philosophy will know that you have completely failed, and now I'll engage with you like a normal non-philosopher. What's your question?
Oh Lord.
Your question
I'm done.
is that I didn't mention the Christian God, and that's your criticism, because most people will think that that's what I'm attacking. That's your criticism.
Well, I mean, that would be kind of So, I mean, you're just attacking the idea of God, not the Christian God.
The idea of God. Okay. So I'll answer that. While it's true, and again, I want to reiterate that I've succeeded in the philosophical front. Anyone who's familiar will see that you've been eviscerated there. Now I'll do the normal stuff. Okay, so to respond to your weird-ass criticism, while it's true that my goal was not specifically to target the Christian God, the God that I disprove nonetheless entails that the Christian God doesn't exist. Okay?
Where did you get your conception of God?
No offense, but that's just absolutely nothing to do.
Really?
Yes,
You're going to disprove a God that you have no conception of how you got to that?
I'm not even going to engage. I'm talking to this guy. So there's omnitheism, which is what I'm disproving. Now, any argument that disproves omnitheism thereby disproves the concept of the Christian God, which is omni. Okay?
Yeah, but even in your thing, you say it's less likely. And I brought this up at the very beginning, right? Just because something's less likely, you can't just automatically jump to. It's not a disproof. It just says, based on my data, and I mean, we could have a really long, by the way, I only have like 5 more minutes. I can do this. I promised Beth I'd show up.
I appreciate
and I only
spent
a little bit of time like looking into your claim. And I do understand the aesthetic deism, right? But I definitely don't think I'm waffling on this at all. Ultimately, it just feels like if you really were to go after the Christian God, you have to spend a lot more than 3 minutes. It's very convenient that you switched to the philosophical version, and I would love to do an hour debate just on that first premise, right?
Sure.
I think it's very fascinating, and I do understand the philosophical circle on that. Like I said, I can grant if you're going to change the God that you're debating, then it's much easier to debate that God. It's much easier to debate it on the premise that you started off with. You shift the goalposts, and like you said, you even self-admitted this. Like, no, I wasn't going after the Christian God. I'm going after this one because it's easy. I can do it in 3 minutes. But per se, I really am going in the background after the Christian God, right? Because I also saw, I didn't watch it. The Bible's the lie, right? Or the Bible lies or whatever. I know that you have a hatred from, maybe I don't know, but you definitely have a dislike for the idea of love, helping your brothers, lifting people around you, and Christianity. I've seen that from what you're doing. And it's kind of funny because you also your debate was hypocrisy. And what you were just doing to me, where I was being really good faith, trying to answer this, and you're just like, just tell me what my argument is. And when I asked very nicely, what is your argument if you're saying I'm not applying it right? I mean, that's a bit hypocrisy right there, I don't know.
Okay, so you said a bunch of things.
No, pause. You came in a little hot, Vibe. I liked it, but then you didn't substantiate it with your argumentation, and now you're falling back and trying to play victim. So stop it. You people forget that I'm watching.
No.
I'll review this shit if you get...
Wait, hold on.
Vibe did not come in hot. No.
Hold on. You know what? I'll take the criticism that I was too aggressive. I think I misjudged your temperament. I thought initially you were being condescending, and once I got that impression, I stuck with it, and I couldn't adjust in real time, and I owe you an apology for that. I was too aggressive, for sure. I'll admit that. I'll totally admit that, and I'll tone it down. However, that's about the only thing I'll grant. No offense, just being honest. I think your criticism was horrible. I think you don't understand at all what you're talking about. Oh my goodness, dude.
I think that what happened was Vibe put it into how he would say it rather than what you said.
No, it was
And
just
they go
so
past
bad.
each
It was
other.
so bad. I have a high standard for philosophical engagement, and that was miserable.
No, they just don't see what you and I see because they're not smart like us. He was playing in your
it was
face.
really
No, Bob. He was playing in your face. You saw it. You said, nah, bitch, you don't fucking come at me, and you smacked him in his face till he cried. That's why I like you.
Oh, good Lord.
I know, but he wasn't being aggressive, so I don't need to be aggressive. But the point, I just want to get to the philosophy. I don't really care so much about who did what and who was mean. It's stupid. The philosophy was just horrible. And do you know what entailment is? I don't need to make explicit that I'm targeting the Christian God for it to be entailed that if I disprove an omni-God, that entails that the Christian God is false. And you pretended as though I was doing a shift. You're like, oh, you made a shift. and you smuggled into the background the Christian. No, it's entailment. If you disprove the omni God, and I wasn't disproving the omni God because it's easier than the Christian God, dude. The Christian God is just like a subset, a proper subset of the types of omni gods you could believe. If you take out the concept of an omni God, Christianity falls apart as well. So it's not like I was like doing some sort of straw man that was easy. And also you kept repeating like my data, my God, my data. No, that's not what's being addressed. What's being addressed is the data that theists offer up in favor of the God hypothesis. Taking that very data, not ad hoc data, not data invented to help my argument, the data theists use, that data implies more strongly that there's an omni-God rather than the deism, aesthetic deist God rather than the omni-God, right? So it's not like my data or anything weird like that.
Okay.
Another point I'd agree with.
Guys.
One more point of agreement. You said that it would take a lot longer to disprove God. Oh, 100%. It's a very long conversation. I have like a 45-minute video where I go over like a bunch of considerations with respect to whether or not God exists. And at the end of the video, I say, and this is not over. It's a much longer conversation. 100%. The debate about God is a long-ass conversation. Can't be distilled into 3 minutes. Obviously, there's some bit of like, I don't know, exaggeration or clickbait or whatever when I say debugging God in 3 minutes. That's how it's like rage bait.
All right, gentlemen, I'm going to end this here. Everyone is stacking up backstage at the Gauntlet for the Raging Tomato.